In my life, I've experienced 3 near-death experiences. The first happened when I was born. I wasn't supposed to live longer than 2 weeks. I was born in the color blue. My lungs were not fully matured. The second occurred when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I was really sick and had to be extracted from my body for a brief time so that it could be adjusted. The third occurred in 1985 when I was 25 years old. That one was unique. Dale, my work partner, and I automatically talked ourselves out of going down into a 12-foot trench. Normally, we would make a trade-off. One stayed above ground while the other moved underground. No, not today. I worked as a water well technician in the chilly area up north. After the drilling team had finished putting the water line and AC down a trench and into the buildings to supply water, our job was to set the pump down the well. We knew it was a dangerous work, but we didn't dwell on it too much. When it happened, I'd been on the job for about a year and a half. I started having these strange dreams about a month before it happened. It felt like we were practicing for a play. I never felt or were afraid of it. They concerned what I needed to do in a cave. It lasted a week before I said enough. They came to a halt. I had no idea how it would finish, and then I forgot about it. Then the big day arrived. It started off like any other day, but Dale was feeling uneasy. He was definitely bothered by something. I had assumed it was something Ed said. He just wasn't himself on that particular day. So we went out to the country to execute this commercial deep well project. The trench was deeper than usual because the well was 1,800 feet deep. 12 feet deep instead of 8 feet deep and less than 3 feet broad, and I'm 6 feet tall. Dale was agitated and short with me at this time. We went over the job and began to work. Dale grabbed the hip waders while I was gathering the tools and hardware, owing to the quantity of water and slush from the snow melting at the bottom of the trench. It was going to be a difficult task. I had every intention of going down, but when I saw him putting on the waders, I told him I would. That sparked a brief disagreement between us. I could have easily let him go and worked above ground by going over the wellhead. It did occur to me for a brief minute, but for some reason, I thought I was supposed to descend down into the trench. After about 15 minutes of disputing, he threw them off and exclaimed, "Fine." I was impressed with it. I met him at the wellhead, and together we connected the wellhead to the water line. After that, he went about his business and I began walking the soft copper wine down the ditch. I'd probably gotten about 20 to 30 feet away from the well with my head bowed over when I noticed the sidewall starting to peel away. This is where the dream came into play. I let go of the copper, stood straight up against the other wall, crossed my arms over my chest and took a long breath. I then shut my eyes. Dale later told me that he heard me and yelled back, "What?" He looked up and found that I was no longer there. A dump truck's worth of heavy wet shale landed on me. I recall wondering if I was going to die while I was being crushed to death. A yes response was received. Then I stated that I didn't want to die. "You're going to," the voice continued. I could feel myself losing the struggle as I sought to find a way out of the circumstances I was in. At one point, the pain became so intense that I yelled my last breath into the darkness that it engulfed me. I was finished. All hope had been lost. I quit fighting. I must have popped out of my body and into the blackness that was around me, but still next to my body at this time. At this moment, there was no pain. I recall it being very dark and lonely, a complete void. I wondered if this was the end, and I'd melt away into oblivion, or if there was something more beyond the state I was in. "Well then," I screamed in my brain out into the pitch blackness that had encompassed me. "When?" Then an arm wrapped around my slumped torso and yanked me out, except now we were ascending, and I was no longer in my body, feeling lighter and more liberated. I was thinking about my family when I heard, "They'll be okay." Okay, I reasoned. I recall witnessing portions of my life when we were moving, but I didn't care. I was aware of my life and simply accepted it as it was. I had no idea what was going on or where I was heading. We came to a halt so I could hear how the universe grew. There was a low hum all around me. Everything around me seemed so alive, and I felt like I was a part of it all, and everything was a part of me. We were a unit. I now see how we are all interconnected. All of this information was pouring into me. It's stunning. So limitless. This is something I've never heard before. The hues were vibrant and unique, unlike anything I'd ever seen. I recall seeing myself as this clear being of pure light, and when we communicated, our entire existence changed colors depending on our response. I realized that I had nothing to hide from anyone. So much affection. Everything is surrounded by pure divine love. It completely overwhelmed me. I witnessed things that I cannot even begin to express. The amazement factor was out of this world. I noticed a gorgeous young man, later recognized as my grandfather. I was shown a lovely city that radiated a golden radiance. I felt as if I had returned home. This sounded extremely familiar to me. Then I got prompted much higher. I was on the floor of a large room in an instant. There were these huge steps in front of me, and my eyes slowly followed them up until they revealed what was above me. "I'm not worthy to be here," I said as I fell face down on the floor. "I shouldn't be here," again and over. I was in the presence of the Holy Trinity. I couldn't bear looking at it. It was so brilliant it was blinding. Christ told me to stand up in an instant, and I did. He then drew me into himself and I vanished. When I awoke, I was cradled in a massive energy-like ball that seemed to go on forever. Like the best mother in the universe, I realized it had to be the Holy Spirit. I was then returned to my body. When I opened my eyes, I could see and feel the sun on me. I was still connected to that lovely relationship. The sky was deep blue, and the clouds were white and lovely. When I looked around, Dale was crying and digging me out by hand. He had dug from the interior of the trench rather than the outside, inward. I was in the position of a fetus. I assured him that I was okay and that everything was good. But I couldn't understand him, and he couldn't understand me. I began to wonder what was wrong when I discovered I was breathing. I was attempting to communicate with him through my thoughts, but it wasn't working. I tried to recall the sensation of breathing. I began to panic. In, out, I repeated to myself until it happened. When I took my first breath, I was sad in my body, and this excruciating anguish hit me like a freight train. I could feel my organs dying, ribs passing through my lungs, internal bleeding, and so on. I wrapped one arm around my upper chest in an attempt to keep things in place. Dale and another person just gazed at me in disbelief. They were wide-eyed and dumbfounded. "Get me out of here," I yelled. Nothing. So I collected enough power to pull myself out of the trench while they yelled at me not to move. I was overjoyed to be up and about. I took a mental inventory of myself and started a cigarette. I felt as if I was going to die again. I should have one final cigarette. I did finally give up. My insides were forced up like a toothpaste tube. My neck now has a cervical spine reversed with a complex fracture at C6. My back's ligaments were all severely damaged. I had an option in this situation. Despite being told what to do, I had a decision to make. I sacrificed my life so that others could live. The most valuable present a person could possibly give to another. You'll be at the front of the line with a clean slate. That is why I approached the Holy Trinity. Heaven's kingdom is genuinely within each and every one of us, and we can draw on it whenever we need to. Every day, I become closer to the spirit within me, learning and experiencing amazing things. At first, I assumed that the church would understand what I'd recently gone through. This type of event puts you on the road less traveled. It's a lonely road. You stick to what you know. I put the adage, "Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you," to the test at the start of my quest. It is effective. There are numerous routes to God. Choose one and stick with it. And don't forget to perform those random acts of kindness along the way. The entire world would shift if 1/5 of the world awoke and performed this.